Oh,
Am
all
I
right.
allowed to eat and drink on this thing, or is
Yeah.
that not the vibe? Because I have
No,
like
no.
a thingy and
I'm
a
I'm
thing.
always drinking coffee. Like
Okay, great.
I'm eating right
Carl's
now.
usually
You just don't
commenting
see
on the
it.
birds
Yeah.
outside of his window.
All
Like I think we
right.
stopped the
Yeah.
last episode of look, there's a blue jay. Let's hold on.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Liquid Leaky podcast. I'm your host, Carl Meister. With me, as always, is my esteemed colleague, Taylor Page. Taylor, how are you?
Carl, looking good today. I like your shirt.
I like the augmentation you've added. Look like that guy from Star
Oh,
Wars.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Pretty nice.
it's part of my pick. Don't.
Okay. All right.
That's too early. That's too early.
All right. I'm doing my little spiel here, and then we'll intro our guest who's already on here. Taylor, have you heard about this thing called AI?
That's yeah, I think so.
Is it coming? Yeah. Have you ever tried to use it and fallen flat in your face, and instead of using cursor, it made you want to curse more?
Yes.
Well, Taylor, I have searched high and low and gone through the archives, and we have extracted Mohammad Hashemi. Gadget is here with us today to tell us all about AI, how they're using it, and some tips and ways that some of their cool tools might be able to help people like us. So, Mohammad, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah. Thank you for having
Yeah,
me
welcome
again.
back.
Surprised
Yeah, of
I
course.
made the cut after my first performance.
Well, that's
I don't remember.
you're just fulfilling your contractual obligations of everyone that comes on once has to agree to coming on a
Yeah.
second time in the future. So you're off the hook after this one until we amend that. So
And as we just discussed, we have hit 602 subscribers, so we're a pretty big deal. You should feel pretty honored.
Big deal.
Before we dive into the AI stuff, though, I've got a bone to pick with you, Mohammed. Were you at Additions.dev?
I was, yeah. Oh,
How did we not see each other?
that's a good question. So two things. Like one, we do the we were at Tectonic, the Mantle event before
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So I think
which I was there for, and your talk was great.
Yeah,
so.
here we go. Thanks for hitting that up. Okay.
Yeah, so I was kind of mostly there, and then I think I like the Shopify event. I was there for like 3-4 hours max, so I was kind of in and out. But sad that we missed each other. I need to do a better job of planning meetings and whatnot. Were you there? You guys weren't there last year. That's why I didn't think you'd be there this year either.
Well, I
Well,
wasn't there
so-
last year. I think Taylor
I
went.
was there.
Yeah.
Last year. Yeah.
I was not at pre-editions last year, but Tectonic this year. I was there for Tectonic, but not for the pre-editions event last year. So, but I was at editions both years. So,
What did you
not
think?
so much. It was great. It was amazing. Like everybody did a killer job. It was very, very good. I was talking about that, and I think I put that in my little survey. I don't know if you get those or who gets those, because it's Mantle, but y'all were sponsors and stuff or whatever. And so, but I was like, man, it's amazing. Like y'all can put on this like level and caliber of an event that like rivals editions.dev almost. Like it was very impressive. It was very well done.
Yeah, they did a really great job, and it was really all them. We didn't do anything this year. It was great. We just showed up.
Well, your
That's
talk was
nice.
good too. I was glad, because I was bemoaning how I literally posted about, like, during your talk you had this, and we can dig more into this or whatever, but you had a term that you used for these like merchants who were using AI who are like accidental devs. I can't remember the term though, and I was so mad that I forgot about it because I really
developers.
liked it. What was it?
Citizen developers.
Citizen developers. And I was like, I loved that term. I was like, this is really, really cool. But then I couldn't remember what it was. So I was like scouring like my tweets and stuff for this, because I replied to someone about it, but I couldn't remember it. So yeah, it was a great
I didn't
talk.
come up
I
with
really
it.
enjoyed it.
Someone else must have, but because I've heard it here and there. But yeah, it's a really good term to describe this kind of new developer that's emerging on some use cases, at least.
So
We'll
you've
see.
been.
I introduced myself. I didn't introduce my company. Should I jump back
Yeah,
in?
the people want to know.
Do the thing.
Yeah, so I am the co-founder and CEO of Gadget. It is an app development and hosting platform primarily focused on the Shopify ecosystem, primarily used by big brands and agencies building custom apps for Shopify Plus or Shopify Enterprise. So internal tools, ERP integrations, things that are really custom where the client wants it to look exactly a certain way or behave exactly a certain way, and they're not buying it off the App Store. But we also have a few hundred apps on the App Store, public apps that are built on Gadget as well. Our products aim We started building it pre-AI, and I'll talk about that. And I'll kind of bring in the AI piece. Was like prior to AI, we started in 2020. Our fundamental belief was, and I think this is much more accepted now, that most of the code developers write is pretty much nonsense. And it's really like open a new tab, go find a snippet because you can't remember, drop it in the black screen, run it, hope it works. If not, debug. And
Got
Cursor
you, Taylor.
prove that, right? Like, because
Same.
Cursor came and said, like, instead of you doing that 15 seconds of nonsense, we'll just bring the snippet to you. And hey,
We'll
look,
bring the little open
70%
tab
of
over
your
here.
job is copying snippets and bringing them to the screen, you know? And everyone's mind is blown. And so, like, we set out to build, prior to AI, a framework way of addressing the fact that most of the developers' code was just like library, glue code, infrastructure, how things connect to each other. But then highly extensible and customizable because, again, the product is oriented for enterprise and they're the pickiest people when it comes to customization. And so the framework can't let you lose control.
Yeah.
So we built that. We're in the Shopify ecosystem. And more recently, I think a few months ago, we launched our AI product as a portion of kind of what we offer. And so now you have an end-to-end kind of AI-assisted experience from booting up the infra, writing the code, deploying, and soon we'll get into the operating of the app where the assistant will probably notify you if if some of your APIs are slower than you expect or whatnot. So kind of like an agent that can navigate the entire software development lifecycle from first line to monitoring an app that is actually in production. So that's kind of what we launched a few months ago and where we're at.
That's really
That's
exciting.
awesome.
How many developers do you have on staff?
14?
14.
We're a small team, yeah. People think we're a lot bigger than we are, but you can do quite a lot with 14 really good developers. I would say like 6 or 7 of them are incredibly experienced.
Gotcha. So we're like 50 of me. Okay, that's good to know.
That your math to Gadget developer ratio?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the conversion.
Well, I just remember, I saw a demo pre-AI.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to add this to our instead of AD or BCE, ACE, whatever it is, it's gonna be like
Yeah,
PAI.
yeah.
And just the amount of complexity in terms of what you guys are handling and the way that you sort of white glove a lot of the essential services, right? I was just always super impressed by how well that was put together. So that you've done that plus all these new features we're going to learn about today with a team of 14's pretty cool.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's more for a compliment from my CTO, who's brilliant, less me, but I'll take it.
Oh, yeah. And I've always, okay, well, so my other job is I'm a senior engineering manager at a financial technology company. And so I'm always very interested in how companies run their software dev teams because there's a lot of variation across the industry. And I feel like there's always something new to learn. And when I see people that are really performing, I get interested. So talk to your CTO one of these days.
Yeah, you should. You should.
You missed him at the SDA meetup. Is that Harry's position? Is Harry CTO? Who's or no?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he crashed the SDA meetup beforehand, so
The
you missed
pennies
out.
one?
Mm-hmm.
I was there. What do you mean I missed him? I was eating popcorn. Did you not see me?
So you missed him. You had the chance to talk to him, and you missed him. He was Simon brought him.
He came after I left?
No, he was there like the whole time, man.
Oh.
Just need to know what he looks like.
Oh
That's-
my gosh.
Yeah.
I say
Okay.
I'll send you his Twitter
Well,
profile so you know what he looks like.
I
Yeah,
had a lot of food in my mouth for a very long time, so I might have missed that chance to actually talk to him. But okay.
You guys are in northern U.S. You can like hop over in 2 seconds and visit us if you'd like. We have
It's
a nice
true. It's
office.
not. It's
We
not.
all
I was so
14 of us
surprised.
in one room.
There you go. Are y'all are based out of Ottawa? You said.
Yeah,
Or-
we don't. We're in office. We don't do remote right now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So where's Ottawa in relation? I had my geography for Canada is
It's
An
Canada.
hour west of Montreal. Did you just say Canada? Yeah, Canada. An hour west of Montreal. So between Montreal and Toronto, if you know where they're at, closer to Montreal.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Yeah,
That's
an hour
awesome.
flight. Like 2 hours.
Well, for Taylor, it would be a half a day's flight at least, given how he.
Oh my
practices.
gosh. Yeah.
Inside
not-
joke.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll do better next time.
Taylor turned a 1 hour trip into a 6 hour marathon.
Wow.
Yeah, I can drive to Toronto in 6 hours, but I took like 8 hours to fly back because I had a long layover, and it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing.
Wow. You guys are in Minnesota.
Ohio.
We're both in Ohio,
It's
in
in the
the
U.S.
States. Yeah. So in the
One
U.S.,
of the
yes.
Canadian states, but Ohio doesn't count. So I think if it was Minnesota or Vermont, it'd be like, you're
Oh
welcome.
yeah, we don't. Well, we kind of border Canada.
Kinda, but like
Like,
there's something about Minnesota and Vermont that's like very familiar to a Canadian.
yeah, desolate, cold.
Yeah, and excessively polite
Yes, that's true.
to a fault.
Oh, the people on the public transport weren't super polite, but that's another thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, um,
I think Toronto was different that
okay.
than like what to expect culturally, right? Like that's not the same. From what I'm told, like there's little like pockets or whatever kind
Oh
of
yeah.
type thing. So yeah.
Anyway, we are way off topic. I'll get us back to technology and away from geopolitical commentary because we are not qualified to comment there. So you're in Ottawa, Taylor. You can go visit. I'll book your flight. It's fine. Um, so the evolution of Gadget, you started as a sort of snippet getter Googler thing, and then you transitioned into this new space. What sort of piqued your interest in getting into this? What was it that you saw as the problem you guys could solve uniquely? Because there's like a bajillion AI startups, right? A bajillion's a technical
I
term.
think
Um,
our view is that a lot of the progress we're seeing is still heavily concentrated on the front end. So a lot of like the real acceleration we've seen from LLMs, in my opinion, has been in front end code. The quality's increased, the design quality of the decisions the assistant makes has increased, and like its ability to get it right in one shot, or even like write it well, where okay, I can tweak it a bit, and this file of code is actually really good, has come a long way, especially in the last 12, 14 months. I don't know what happened, but like Sonnet 4 is just wild in terms of like its ability to write front end code. My view is that most software is complicated because backends are complicated. And I mean like business software for commercial purposes. Gadget's ethos is to go after that class of software, less, let's say, someone building a game or a mobile app, or something to learn how to code because they want to get a job in 2 years, like a blog or a Tinder for dogs is my joke kind of app that I always talk about, like some silly idea they're just like playing with over the weekend. Less
there might be
that,
something there.
more like commercial tools, internal tools. I need this to help my business, or I plan on selling this to other businesses. And that type of software always has a back end, and the back end is usually rarely just CRUD to a database. And so I think like there's a lot of hype about how far AI has gotten, but there is a wall, at least seemingly in my opinion, on back end so far. And that's why I think you get a lot of like derision from like traditional developers as to how far AI can go. Because they know, real software will have like a webhook, a background job, like we'll have some sort of order of operations that's really hard to scale unless it's written in files in this way so that other people can read those files. But the reality is like where we've gotten to with like good front end and basic CRUD, there's a lot of use cases that are good front end and truly just CRUD.
Hmm.
And so I think this will march up over time. Like that, this is we were at static websites. Now we're at front ends with CRUD. Over time, we'll kind of go up. The barrier seems to be on the back end. Now, to your question, why would Gadget get involved? Well, the back end is what we pride ourselves on because our framework is
Hmm.
a back end framework. It's something like Rails with infrastructure kind of bundled into it. It's battle tested as hell over the last 2.5 years that we've kind of been in market with Shopify agencies. And it scales, and it is truly serverless, meaning serverless backend, serverless front end, serverless database. And so we have had that, and it occurred to us after kind of looking at what everyone else was doing that we can try something novel in the back end. Effectively teach an assistant how to navigate and use our framework when it's possible, and then complement it with code when necessary. So our ethos has kind of changed to we will, as humans, build into our framework the things that just need to work right every time, like auth or the CRUD API, or how a database talks to a backend, or how a backend talks to another API on the internet. These bits and pieces are human built into the framework because they just got to work. They got to work right. There is a right answer. Sometimes there's many right answers, but there's right answers and there's wrong answers. And so it just doesn't make sense to ask the assistant each time and hope that you got the right one when there is a lot of wrong answers and a human can kind of build you an extensible right one. And so that's how we see our framework. The framework is like this extensible, human built, the things that need to be reliable will be reliable, auth, tenancy, permissioning, security, da 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 da. Or even just like the backend framework that protects the database against code that should not be running in the database, but should be running in a backend. We have a lot of little things in Gadget that front-end developers will be nudged towards the right behavior, whether or not they know the right behavior themselves or not. So like, that's our framework. Now there's this really cool thing that can write functions really well. I don't think it's really good at writing scalable backend best practices or like even the glue code or things that I would trust to kind of scale, but functions, it writes functions real well. And so you got this Gadget framework combined with this assistant that first reads our docs, decides, does the framework have what I need? If so, tool call, set up this perfect thing humans have built. Don't mess it up. Don't touch it. If it's not enough, add more code to it and customize it. And so the net result is you just kind of get this like already in Gadget, even though it's only been live for a month, like front end to back end connectivity in Gadget is always one shot because the framework produces an API that produces documentation. The documentation is instantly fed to the agent. The documentation has code samples. The agent just like, here's a code sample, like put it in, tweak it, done. And so you kind of get this like effect of not static website with like content faked in, but actual front end talking to actual database using a framework where right after your prompt and accepting that code, you can go pummel us with a million API calls and see if that one-shotted CRUD API works or not. And it's guaranteed to work because I know the assistant didn't write it and I did. And it's been working for 2.5 years. So that's kind of our approach is like maybe in the 10-year spectrum or 5 years, the infrastructure gets so powerful that the context windows can be loaded with so much context that we don't need frameworks anymore, or the frameworks are Rails and whatnot, and the assistants just navigate them perfectly. That's not the case today. And frankly, I don't believe that will be the case for a couple of years at least, because so many of the back-end things that I think I value or I've learned have been learned through trial and error and not reading blog posts on the internet. So I'm not exactly sure that the content even exists for the true back-end best practices that live in the heads of people who've worked at companies with really big backends. And frankly, most of those people will tell you they learned it the hard way. They were about to get fired because they couldn't do the job. They banged their head on a wall, thought about it for 8 years and like talked to 20 people and then finally came up with a solution. But there was no blog post to help them. So if the LLM's looking for that blog post, good luck, because I couldn't find it as a human, you know? So my view is just like there's at least 2-3 years, maybe even more before backends feel like front ends. And so that's our opportunity. We get in now, we show people we can do really impressive things with backends and surprise them as to how reliable they are. And yeah, maybe over time, like 5 years, that no longer is an advantage, but 5 years is a long time to kind of build a market. And so that's kind of why we got into it. We're like, we have a novel take. Our ethos is not 100% AI, write every code from scratch. Like, why? Why would I want auth written by AI when I can have it written by Harry? And so we combine framework and LLM together.
Gotcha.
It's awesome.
Kind of like a gasoline electric hybrid kind of car. You get the best of both worlds.
Exactly. If hybrid's going to electrical work, we're electric. The moment it's not enough, we're going back to gas. And frankly, like that's been our ethos even within our framework. I don't know how many of your audience members are Gadget users or whatnot, but like our framework has a framework portion and a framework escape portion built into it. So even in the framework, you're like, yeah, I can't do it the way you guys want. I just want like a HTTP route. I'm going to figure this out from scratch. And so that what we kind of poetically describe as like peeling the onion layers has been like a big part of our product from the get-go, which is like as you peel a layer, you get more control, you lose speed. You go down one layer, you lose more speed, you get more control. And this way we've escaped now the comparisons to low code, no code. No one calls Gadget low code anymore. I think anyone who's used it is like, no, this is actually pretty full code. They just expose it to you in baby steps because why show code for CRUD when you can just say it's CRUD, you know? So that's kind of been our ethos from the get-go, is like progressively give you control as you need it.
That's very cool. So you mentioned enterprise a fair number of times, but as you think through what you guys have been building out there, who do you really think it's for? Is it primarily for enterprise clients? Is it for individual folks trying to set up their first app or small agencies?
So that's a great question. I think like, and the answer will vary in the short and long term. I think like one most friendly IDEs, and I would call Gadget a web IDE. It's a complicated web IDE because some people think of us as just infra, not the IDE. They use VS Code or Cursor alongside us. But most IDEs these days are kind of appealing to more than just the traditional dev. Like Cursor's market, like people think like it's lovable, Replit and whatnot, but like Cursor's user base is littered with non-developers who are succeeding at building small pieces of software for themselves. I wouldn't be surprised if there are more non-devs using Cursor than devs and paying for it. So I think in that sense, like everyone's kind of moved away from we are a product for this level of technical and moving more towards like we're a product for these use cases. And maybe you're committed enough to figure it out because you were a spreadsheet junkie or a PM at a tech firm and you're going to put 10 hours to read the docs. Or maybe you're not because you're my mom and you expect one shot, one click. And if it doesn't work, you're like, your AI is broken. But I think most are taking this tact of like, it's changing too fast. And so let's not market to specific people and let's market to use cases. And that's kind of the tact we take. Now, my view is in the short term, we are a product for professional developers building for enterprise. We have always been able to bring that down market. So when I say professional developers, in our case, we have like pure front end devs building ERP integrations for an enterprise brand using Gadget. We have like solutions engineers, technical PMs. I don't think we're yet at the level where my mom or someone who's not going to give us 10 hours of like, let me actually read what the assistant said, go to the docs, maybe change my prompt. Like if you're that person, you'll succeed with Gadget today. And that's a market I am going towards. But if you're not that person, it's still kind of out of reach. And so what we're trying to do is get to a point, I think, where a meaningful percentage of merchants, right now we have some merchants building apps for themselves, which is really exciting to see for the first time ever. Meaningful apps. I'll give you some examples of them because they're pretty crazy. But what I want to get to is like a meaningful percentage of them can accomplish it, not like a sub 1%. And then I think we have something pretty interesting where there's like a class of software that I don't even think agencies and freelancers were ever building. I don't even think developers know just how much custom software demand exists in the world, because developers are the last people to hear it, because there's just this like multi-decade perception of expensive when you talk custom. So if you go tell my wife, who runs a Shopify Plus brand that's doing well, like, hey, I'll give you if you ask her, hey, what do you need built for your business? She'll say nothing every time. If you tell her I'll give you a free developer who can build anything for your business, she'll start pummeling you with like app ideas she wants. And if you tell her why did that change the answer, she'll think about it for a long time and eventually say that, well, I just think like the cost, the burden, the talking to a dev, getting them engaged is just so costly that like these small things aren't worth it anymore. I'll suffer versus do it. And I think that's the market that AI plus Gadget really opens up. The silly 3 to 5K ideas that the developers won't touch for good reasons too. You know, they know there's a lot of back and forth with clients and maybe the price point's not worth it. But like opening that up to an audience for whom it is worth it. And even if they can't finish, I have an ecosystem of agencies and a framework that makes it easy for agencies to understand code not written by themselves that might be willing to say, hey, I'll finish it for you. And so that's kind of the thing I'm excited about this year is like, can Gadget increase the number of apps being built in the Shopify ecosystem by an order of magnitude, custom apps specifically, because I think that's where the opportunity is with AI, by bringing in this audience that has infinite use cases but refuses to tell developers about it because they think it's cheap, showing them, hey, you might be able to do it on your own. getting them as far as you can. Maybe some will finish, and a lot will be kind of funneled to agencies and the ecosystem to kind of wrap up. But I want to prove that, like, no, the custom software ecosystem is like anywhere between 10 to 100x what people think, and AI is the reason we'll prove it. You know.
And I think, from my perspective, one of the things that's unique about Gadget, and I guess it's true about places like Lovable and such as well, but it's not so hard to generate custom software these days with a lot of tools around that. But the hosting and the infra piece, that's like a whole other part of the equation, right?
Exactly.
So,
Like, and not just the hosting and the infra piece, but like the ongoing scalability. And so that's the thing I didn't really talk about with the framework is like the framework is very much like Rails if Rails knew everything about the infrastructure that was running it. And so our framework concepts are tied to infrastructure that powers them. So for example, a Gadget action, which is the primary backend API, is like a 2 GB worker that can do this many concurrent requests. But if you do the search, it's on Elasticsearch and da da da. So we have this other piece that just magically works that I kind of like to call VibeInfra, where as you, the human, whether you're a pro dev writing code by hand, or let's say you're like getting it from the assistant, as those lines of code are punched in real time, infra swaps. If you in Gadget write api.enqueue.run my action, it's running on a temporal cluster as a background job. If you write api.action, it's running on a 2 GB worker in Google Cloud. Da, da, da. But like you have no concept of that at all. You're just writing code and infra keeps switching under the hood depending on what you're trying to do with it. And the reason we do it this way is because our framework allows us to offer what we like to call the first truly serverless product in the world, meaning serverless everything. Your tools are scaled by us. Your logger has too much logs. Don't worry, it'll log it. Your front end is scaled by us. Your back end is scaled by us. And then what I think is the most complicated thing to scale in the world, a database, is scaled and indexed by us. A multi-tenant, in our case, database is indexed and scaled by us for a boatload of developers. And it's the framework that allows for that. And so to your point, the net result is I build custom apps and I don't do infra upgrades. I don't do scalability unless like it's code glitches that are presenting them at scale where I need to go refine my code just to make it a bit faster or better. The only thing I really worry about is that once a year Shopify upgrade, which even that is like a one-click in Gadget, and I just need to make sure it's not a breaking change. And so the net result has been like the first cohort of agencies we went after, some of the best examples like Radical, like they used to build a couple of apps a year. This year I met him at the event and they're a team of like 4 engineers using Gadget. It's like, we might hit 100. They're already like 40. We're talking a team of 4 devs. Like, and yes, building is one thing, but like, it's because they can just, the Gadget team's running 100 apps, whereas we're kind of monitoring and upgrading and whatnot.
sure.
It's only because of the VibeInfra truly serverless piece of our product offering that we can do that. And that's kind of the game is like, yeah, building is one part of the problem, but unless you can actually run them, we haven't 10x the market.
Yeah. And Taylor, if you have a question, feel free to toss in. I want to dominate the conversation. But the other piece, Mohammed, is a developer coming from this market perspective, like, doing apps myself, stuff. You can automate the front end. You got the infrastructure. You can automate the DevOps to a thing. Selfishly, someone like me is like, can you automate the marketing? Can you automate the sales? Like, these are the pieces that developers typically we don't like.
Yeah.
Precaution.
So
You don't like to get into.
I haven't focused on it, and I'll tell you why. And this might also be controversial. Oh, this will definitely be controversial, which is like, while my excitement is about the custom app ecosystem, my excitement towards like AI growing the SaaS ecosystem is lukewarm. And it's kind of because of my deeply held belief that custom software has been held back by cost and not ideas. There's so many ideas developers don't hear about. Whereas SaaS software is not, in my opinion, actually restrained by cost. The bar for big SaaS is incredibly high, and I think people trivialize how hard it is to get someone to switch from let's say you decide to go compete with Klaviyo tomorrow, like the switching cost from that to the better version, you better be like 3x better. Like, now go build an MVP of a thing that's 3x better than that thing, because no one will switch otherwise. I think people are trivializing that like we're limited by our capacity for great ideas. I do think there's a micro SaaS ecosystem that's coming out of like SaaS that would have been too expensive to build because the market is capped at like 200K a year. That's the max revenue you're going to make. But all of a sudden, when the build is so cheap, someone's like, yeah, 200K a year. Like, that's amazing. So I agree that ecosystem is real. I find the language, the marketing, the hype is all about, I'm going to go build Java. I'm going to do this. Like, I don't think that's real. And I don't think it's because AI will make it faster has been the problem. It's just like, well, how are you going to compete with, like, let's say you can build Shopify overnight. What exactly are you building that's going to crush them tomorrow? Let's pretend you can snap your finger and it exists. Like, the issue is not the build, it's the idea. And so I'm a little lukewarm on it, which is why I haven't bothered spending too much time on AI for marketing, because I think the whole SaaS is going to blow 1000x is hype. I think custom software is going to blow 1000x because it's been held back by costs.
So the idea is more so, that's kind of interesting, like bespoke custom software. So more like leveraging a lot of service providers, really just being able to like crank out a lot more stuff or in-house, and same thing for enterprise, like everything being in-house, like we can just build stuff as we need it, not have to worry about all these other pieces versus,
Yeah.
SaaS, right? Like,
And I'm not saying SaaS is dead.
what's
I
the
know
need?
some people are kind of going to that extreme. I think there's like a class of SaaS that might be dead in 3 years, but I think that class is things that probably shouldn't have been SaaS in the first place. To me, a thing that should be SaaS is a thing that's complicated, where you're renting really smart people to improve it. But there's a lot of SaaS out there that's like, this static CRUD app has been the same static CRUD app for 4 years and I'm renting it, versus like buying a CD like it's the 1980s, which is the right way to buy that type of product. So I think that SaaS is at risk, because there's a new thing coming that's like, maybe I could just spin up my own custom version perfectly and not pay these randos every month, but pay one time or a much lower cost. I think that SaaS is a little at risk, but I wouldn't say like Klaviyo itself is going to be replaced by some custom app built by a merchant. That's the type of thing that I think people will quickly be like, no, I'm going to rent some smart people and they're just going to keep making this thing better for me, because this is a complicated topic that, I don't have.
Right. So a lot of the smaller things, like, oh man, this would be super nice to have, kind of type thing. But
Exactly. Let me give you some
yeah.
examples. The first merchant I know that finished an app in Gadget was previously uploading data from a spreadsheet to generate graphs about the engine performance for his engine parts that he sold, and putting it on the product page of the store. He now does this with a Gadget app where he uploads the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet uses a charting library and uses an extension to put it on his store. He asked a web developer, which I think means like a liquid dev in his context, to build it for him. And the web developer said he didn't have the skills to do it. The merchant did it. Like, wild. Internal tool, kind of like, I'm spending 10 hours of my life. I'm never going to tell an agency to build this for me for 10K because I don't have that kind of money. And they won't talk to me if I say, hey, I got 2K. But now Gadget AI, I think he spent like $400 or $500 in credit. So like, it took him a while to get there, but like, no developer's building you that for $500 in like 4 days. Anyone you talk to will be like 4 days of just writing bullet points on a document to decide what they're going to build first. So that's an example of that kind of internal tool. Or like some from my wife, or she has influencers that distribute her products, but sometimes they take advantage of the promotions she gives them. So a little report that notifies her when some of her influencer partners are taking advantage, or pulling some data from some obscure Shopify API that she knows Gadget can kind of pull data pretty easily, and generating like tables and views for themselves. Gorgeous Slack integration. Like, they just wanted to see all of their conversations in Slack. It's not even a Shopify app. They just use Gadget to like transfer data between Gorgeous and Slack. So a lot of little things like that. Now with my wife, I help her. She's not doing this all on her own. And she's also a former Shopify PM. So she just has like the mind for it. But that's the type of stuff we're talking, like not crazy hard domain where you keep going deeper and deeper and evolving the thing, like a very fixed problem with a beginning and an end, and the software is not constantly being iterated on. Internal tools, integrations, little automations, that kind of stuff. Not Shopify Flow, though, like a little bit more complex, where you need a UI, you need CRUD, you need search, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So yeah,
Well, I don't know. Even sometimes Shopify Flow is too much for for people too. Like, I end up I'm always surprised when I have to like set that up,
yeah, they're making that easier, I think, but not exactly sure how yet.
Yes. Yeah. It's coming.
Yeah,
So, did you meet your wife at Shopify? You said she was a
I
PM.
did. Yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
was,
cool.
we were both on the product team, which is a little questionable. But yeah, I worked in Montreal. She was in Ottawa, and we knew each other, and we kind of over time, yeah, fell for each other.
That's a nice story.
Yeah.
Um, so if you were to be at Editions or somewhere and meet a Shopify developer that's like just checking this out, like how can Gadget help me today? Like, what are some very practical things that you might want to pass on to folks who might be interested in exploring what the next setup would be for their project?
Yeah. So I think if I were talking to freelancers, agencies, or app studios, like people who build more than one over and over and over again, I would honestly say like the value proposition of Gadget is in 4 buckets. Zero setup infrastructure, literally nothing. You're live on the internet with Postgres, front end, back end on Google Cloud, temporal for background jobs, Elastic for search in a second. And they're all connected to each other. They're not just booted up, they're talking to each other perfectly. Zero integration to Shopify. With the AI or by clicking, you get an integration that gives you webhook handlers built in, syncing, nightly reconciliation, where we will double check all your data against Shopify's data and see if any events were missed, and rate limit free syncing. So we handle the rate limit problem for you. So you can say, go get 1 million records from this Plus store for me, and we'll just get it. The third bit is the framework that absolves you with the help of AI of all this nonsense boilerplate you write. And the fourth bit is zero DevOps. We are effectively every piece of infrastructure you need if you choose to use us that way. And we're scaling all of it. It's all serverless. And so the net result is if you're a freelancer or an agency, you make more money with the same staff. You complete more projects with the same people. You maintain less. You work on the next project instead of spending 10 hours upgrading to the latest Shopify version. You do half an hour, and now you go 9 hours of building something else. And that's kind of how I would pitch it to them. Public app developers or people who are doing it once, I would say, one, time to market. You can just test your idea in days and see if anyone cares before you start worrying about rebuilding it right or correctly. And then zero DevOps, true serverless. The speed to iteration with Gadget of adding new features is quite high because you're just focused on a portion of what a developer would traditionally do. And even that portion is heavily assisted with our AI. So quite competitive. And I think we get the heebie-jeebies of like, will this scale or whatnot? And so at this point, I think 2 years in, we have some really big proof points where like, it's not just small apps, but like Rewind uses Gadget for quite a lot of things that aren't super public or visible. And we're actually surprised that like, unless we give people a reason to leave, there's actually less reasons to leave than people think. The framework is extensible enough that people don't hit a wall where they're like, I must leave. The pricing seems to be working where people aren't, I must leave. There's some things to kind of adjust there. But at the top end, the churn we've seen over the last 12 months has been apps going out of business, not apps leaving Gadget.
Gotcha. And when I looked at it last and was playing around with it, it was primarily supported JavaScript. Do you support any other languages?
Yeah, so it's still JavaScript only, JSTS. And the reason for that is think of, you guys will appreciate this because you guys appreciate Rails. I think
That's right, we do.
Yeah, I think DHH wrote at some point a whole blog of like Rails is Omakase, Gadget is Omakase. Rails is not Omakase. Yeah, right. Rails was kind of Omakase. Gadget is extreme Omakase. Like
What's
we've
Omakase?
we've made Omakase is not a la carte. The
Ah,
opposite of a la carte. A la carte is you pick. Omakase is someone is presenting to you their passion with all the decisions pre-made for you so that you can enjoy an experience. And if Omakase is not for you, Gadget is not for you. You know, if a la carte is what you're looking for, there are a la carte options out there. And the reason we do Omakase is the exact same reason Rails did it, which is in being selective, we offer tremendous acceleration. And so I often joke that Gadget is for the profit-oriented developer that just wants to make sure they're doing the job and they're doing it right, not the DX-oriented developer where there's suddenly like conflict between is this decision for the interest of my client or myself, and or gets really picky about my auth must be with this library or else my eyes will bleed, and like we're just not for that person. We're Omakase, and it's because framework and infrastructure are tied together. And when you get selective about languages, you can do that so much better than trying to do it for many, many languages. It's also why our assistant is a little bit more like, in my opinion, high quality. It's like, unlike Replit, I don't have to train it on 10 million languages. I just focus on one. So yeah, Gadget
being
is
selective there
Omakase.
is very much so a superpower, right? Like,
Yeah,
everything gets a little bit better
actually
when you can just
rewriting our
focus.
yeah, exactly. I'm rewriting our manifesto, which was written in a pre-AI age, and I think that is going to be the title: "Is the Gadget is Omakase," and explain what that means, and declare it, and say if Omakase is not for you, we're just not for you. Feel free to go 10 times slower and charge your clients 10 times more.
You guys come up with these terms. That's funny. I was watching a video DHS just posted last night about his Linux setup, and it's called Omachi or
Yeah.
Omachi. Is that related to Omakachi? I don't know where these are. These
He's
Japanese words?
obsessed with Japan, so I think
Okay.
he always finds like some Japanese thing to allude to when he's trying to be poetic. But no, I think Omachi is like I'm just googling it. It's a pack of noodles, a brand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. It's so exotic.
Uh, I'll see if I can find that blog post. I think it was called Rails is Omakase, and
That's
it's quite
funny.
good.
At DHH,
Yeah,
you're
we'll
listening. We'd love
find
to
that.
have you on the show too. So thanks.
Oh,
for
really?
listening.
Yeah.
No, I said we'd love to have him on if he said it.
Yeah, you should have got Toby to get him on because he probably could have.
I think that was before the partnership. But,
Yeah.
Oh well.
Oh no, they're very good friends. They met. Toby used to work on Rails, so he knows
Yeah.
Dave. way back then.
Yeah, and they're racing now and all this other stuff or whatever. They've got a lot of like shared and aligned interests and passions for things. So it's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
I'm glad they went that route. I feel like when you reach a level of success, that there's sort of two paths people tend to take. One is the private pilot route, which that seems a lot more inherent risk.
Yeah.
The other one is racing, and then I'm sure there's maybe,
Yeah.
maybe ballooning. I don't know what yachting probably, private islanding. These are problems we're not going to have, Taylor. So don't worry.
Maybe
Someday,
they'll
but
start
not
using
Mohammed,
Gadget and
though,
start cranking out all
think-
these apps.
Yeah, you guys. I need you guys to build the apps.
I know. Well,
Well-
so I'll be honest with you. I have like put this off for so long, and I'm like, oh man. Every time after I hear you talk, I'm like, oh, I like need to
It's a
spend
good salesman.
time in this because there's so many like little use cases and frustrations that I've had of, and I don't know. Like I'm like really I'm a front end dev, and I know a bit about the back end or whatever. Everyone wants this illusion of like full stack, right? But that's not really a thing as much. Like you usually lean one way or another. And so
Yeah.
at a certain point, I feel like I have to like give up on this like dream of like, I'm not really a developer until I build something completely from the ground up. And I just need to focus on, I liked what you said too, like even, profit focused developers, which true. Like I'm not just profit focused for myself and my own business. Like I'm actually very happy with the amount of money that I make, but if I can help make the businesses I work with more profitable, like that to me is a huge win. And so
Yeah.
being able to
You
crank
should,
out a lot of
Taylor,
those small use cases,
read some of our case studies because I think you'll see yourself in all of them. Where
Well, I'm pretty so that's even I was talking to the folks over at Biscuit Bundles. That's a Gadget app, and they're both in SDA and they're awesome people. And so that I was talking about my frustrations of so as a freelancer, I'm like trying to move into like building apps, and I'm frustrated because I keep passing up the time. I keep saying yes to the guaranteed money from freelancing of like services, like front end dev. Like I've got so much work that like it's hard to get ahead. So I keep saying yes because I then have to start saying no to the guaranteed money and yes to the maybe money of building an app. Right. And that's what they just kept saying. Like, just use Gadget. Like you'll be fine. Like, cause you won't have to spend nearly as much time as you think you will. And I'm like, okay. Like they pretty much convinced me. So and then talking to you now, it's going to have to happen.
Radical and read the one about Rewind, because I think in both of those cases, it's front-end developers building full-stack apps in shocking amounts of time that are built for enterprise brands. Like Rewind's entire use case is like a companion app that they cross-sell with their primary app to the enterprise. It was built
Mhm.
by front end dev in 3 weeks in Gadget, and it's still
That's
running
crazy.
2 years
That's
right
awesome.
later. So like you're talking days and weeks, not months. And universally, like front end developers really love Gadget because it just gives them some weird superpowers. The other nice thing that's happened is I think we've kind of like really established ourselves in the ecosystem. So like year one, when I went to tech pre-editions, which was the event right before Shopify's editions, I could tell like half the agency ecosystem was ours, and it was kind of the smaller half, like mostly theme developers and front end devs that had discovered Gadget and decided, hey, we're full stack agency now, like
Yeah.
Radical and some of the smaller players. This year around, it's like I was on a panel for enterprise, TMG, our client, Born Group, our client, Code, our client, Domain, our client. And so like it's gotten to a point where it's easier to talk about with people because they trust these bigger agencies. And it's like, wait a
Right.
second, like what, like you're telling me Bosch's thingy is built on Gadget by Domain? Like, yeah. And so you could be doing that too. And I would encourage you to take a look because I think your perception of the amount of time I think you'll find will be challenged pretty quickly. Like it's hours and days before you feel like, holy cow, I can build a Shopify app.
Yeah,
Not,
and that's how to win me over on anything. Talk to me about time because
yeah,
that's how I measure everything.
yeah.
So
Read those case studies, man. I didn't write them.
yeah.
It's a rewind dev self-declaring 2 weeks end to end. And honestly, I think it could have been done in a day personally, but like read them and they'll give you the confidence that it's not just the CEO but blowing smoke, there's something actually happening.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm definitely gonna have to
Not Ruby.
properly kick into it. I
Yeah.
know it's like I said, I keep getting in this position of I need to do this, but I think I need to. I like the idea too of like even if you just want to use it to flesh out an idea, that's really fantastic too. Because again, like if you can cut down your time, to going live and stuff like that, you can test out a lot of ideas. You see a lot of these successful devs, and I think everybody kind of falls into this trap of, you know, this one idea that I have is great, and I've talked to merchants, and it's going to be awesome. And then they spend all this time building it, and then it's like it turns out it was just really for that one merchant, and like
Yeah.
you don't really get a lot of customers, and so they have to build like 8 to 10 apps before they finally find the one that works. And so like
Yeah.
if you can get something that gets you those first 8 to 10 faster,
Yeah.
you know,
That's actually our biggest challenge, by the way, that deeply held developer confidence that this idea is going to work and make me a billionaire, and therefore I should make every decision correctly for the next 50 years up front. Because of course I'm going to be rich, and if I make them wrong, I'm going to have to refactor everything. And so you just end up making incredible engineering decisions that go nowhere and wasting your own time. And that's a threat to Gadget, because I think that perception of like, because this is going to work, I should go slow and steady. Well, I don't need Gadget now. And that's unfortunate for us, which is why we mostly focus on like app developers focusing on niches like Shopify where it's tricky, they got a lot to learn, front end devs who can't do it, or app studios who do it a lot. But full stack dev building their second Shopify app after building the first one, that's a hard one for us to win because of this deeply held belief of course, this idea is going to work. Why would I put it on Gadget? I need to put it on the cheapest infra I can find and like fine tune it to death, and then find out no one cares,
Oh, you've been reading my email. Okay.
I've
Oh, well, no, because I did just,
been reading
I
the
started
email. What
my first.
happened to the email?
No, there's is no email. But this is the whole thought process I have been through these last few months, where I was starting a new project, a public app on Shopify. It's like, well, I tiddled around with Gadget when you were on the show last time. I didn't go very far with it because JavaScript.
Yeah,
Uh,
fair.
but maybe should I do my own thing or should I just bite the bullet? But I felt like for me, similar to how Taylor was talking about time being a big issue. I have a understanding of a certain space in the tech world, Rails stack, that kind of stuff that I know it'll just work. It might take me
Yep.
some. So the hypothesis was it'll be easier for me and I'll have more control if I just do what I know how to do, as opposed to like
Yep.
try to learn a new way of thinking with Gadget.
Yep.
Up front, that seemed like a wise idea. A few months in, I'm not so sure that actually played
Right.
out the way I was expecting it to,
Yeah.
right? Because there's all those things like you just glossed over that you guys handle. Like I'm handling those and I'm doing it the way I want to, but it takes a lot of work.
And the point of Gadget, which I can't describe, if you guys give me a word for this, I promise I will put it in my manifesto.
Parfait Nukin.
It's those rabbit holes. like I don't know how to describe to someone that you should know you're gonna end up in weird rabbit holes for days and days and days. Stop pretending it's gonna take 10 minutes. You know that's not gonna happen. The version of this thing and that thing that try to connect on Google Cloud somehow requires this one sentence from this doc, and good luck finding it. Like that's the pain of software development. It's like, oh, I'm about to get to the business. Oh no, I'm stuck on glue code and I'm going through 18 docs trying to figure out what's going on. Is it because I'm running it on AWS versus here that it's happening or whatnot? Like we've had a very hard time up front reminding the developer, even the experienced developer, that like, what are you talking about? You can build it in a day. Like, well,
That's right.
that's not true. But it's such a disconnect, and even I do this. Like with Gadget now, I've kind of been trained to look out for this because I could see all developers making the same mistake. I still periodically am like, this is not gonna take too long, and then I get myself stuck in a weird quagmire. I'm like, you should know better than this.
Yes, I wish they made Gadget for plumbing because he would have saved me a lot of time this last week.
Yeah, yeah. If you guys have a word for like that, I can say that reminds developers that like, no, there's this body of work that's like unknown that is actually most of your hours.
It's gotta be a
That's what
Japanese word.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
gotta be a Japanese word. No, that's my infinity pool of edge cases. Like, because
Yeah.
that's all it ever ends up being. Like, it's just this constant, like, oh shoot, like now there's this thing. Oh shoot, now there's this thing. And
And by
because
the way,
it is,
if you guys worked here at Gadget and sat next to our infra team, it is madness of that because now we're taking that on across a portfolio of apps built by different developers. And so now we have homogeneity of like framework and the infrastructure stack we've chosen to use, but there's still all sorts of weird things that happen when the code and the infrastructure meet. And so our infra team, a bunch of hyper nerds who are kind of like trying to do this across apps they've never really effectively built, like more as like a white label framework concept on top of it.
Thought he
So
was
it's
offering
mad.
us a position there for a second, Taylor, but I don't think that's what he meant. If we worked in his infra team.
Come on in, join.
Yeah, I don't live in Ottawa. I live in
Sure.
Ohio.
Yeah.
Well, I think this might be a good spot, speaking of nerds, to really switch over to the main nerd here, Taylor, and talk about the changelog. I mean, we could talk about Gadget for probably longer than we ought to. So I wonder, anything else you have to make sure we cover?
yeah. Anything else, Mohammed, that you want to talk about with Gadget as far as like what y'all are building and I think we covered a lot of like really good use cases, and you've convinced me, and
Yeah, we
you
know what
and
Taylor's
Gabby have
doing this
convinced
weekend.
me. This is
I
what
would
I'm
just
doing this
say,
weekend now.
I think I would just say like the overall temperature among developers is a little bit more negative than it should be, and that
Mm,
really what is likely to happen is a growth in the market because things that were cost prohibitive are less cost prohibitive. Most of the new developers are working on use cases traditional developers would have said no to in the first place. And so it's a little disingenuous to be like, oh, my market's shrinking. It's like you were never saying yes to those jobs. They found a way to do it themselves.
right.
And maybe there will be some pressure to move to more complex applications for traditional devs because over time, if static site plus CRUD is possible today with vibe coding, maybe something more complicated in 2 years, maybe more complicated. So developers should spend some time reevaluating tools and thinking about like where they live in use cases, like almost have like a mind
Yeah.
map of use cases and like which ones are for the devs like me and which ones are for these new citizen devs, because there's going to be shifts in the next 2-3 years, and that's the only risk is like if a developer's sleeping behind the wheel and not paying attention, yeah, you risk being left behind, but you did that to yourself. Like you just weren't keeping
Yeah.
up with an industry that was shifting.
Yeah.
But it's
100%.
gonna
Well,
grow.
I think
It's not gonna shrink.
some of those issues in general, like you're talking about, like so I do see this use case with citizen devs, but I work with some of these citizen devs who, like, I take a job. I had one recently, and then after I take the job, he's like, oh yeah, like I got as far as I could with cursor in this, and then and I just need help now because everything's busted. I'm like, oh no, oh sweet.
Yeah.
This is after I take the job, then you tell me that you broke it with AI and you're in it, and like it's liquid, and so like the folks at Shopify are doing a really good job. Max Stover had created like these really good like rules for cursor and stuff that you can add to really help out with liquid and stuff like this or whatever. But it's getting better. But like man, like when you drop into stuff, you're like, I can tell you wrote this with AI because of all of like the ridiculous stuff that's in here, or everything's dumped in the theme.liquid file, and it's just like all these random like things. Like there were, you know,
Can I throw a little?
references to block settings that's even not even inside of a block loop or anything like this or
Yeah,
whatever. It's just dumped in randomly. And so it's stuff like that where you're like, okay, like this is actually creating more work, for people, like at least offhand, because these people that think they know, they're just enough to be dangerous, get far enough to break it. And so, but like you said, it's kind of like the use cases and where I've found AI to be most helpful for me personally is like scaling out kind of that initial bit that would have just taken me time, and then
yeah,
from there, because troubleshooting is still iffy with a lot of
yeah,
AI stuff. And some of that, like you had mentioned too, the benefit of your AI within Gadget being as good as it is because you could set up the guardrails of like, this is all you have to focus on. Like, get good at this thing
yeah,
versus a lot of us are using AI tools that are just like, kind
yeah,
of like
exactly.
not specialized. And
Like
so,
our AI, there's only one set of backend logs. We just have to teach it how to read our backend logs, and that's it.
mhm,
And now it has access to every app on Gadget's backend logs perfectly.
yep.
And so like it's just a lot easier for us to kind of do that.
Right. And so yeah, people definitely, yeah, you're sleeping on it. And I was the same way. I was super slow with AI. At first, the initial hype felt like the same like NFT crypto kind of
Mm.
stuff when it got like real big and then kind of shrunk back, kind of type thing. And so I waited for a while before like all the smart people were like, "Oh, like you need to be using this." And I was like, "Okay. All right, fine." And so I feel like Gadget's the same way. There's a lot of like really smart people over that I know now that are using it and finding a lot of success with it. So obviously y'all are crushing it there. So
I appreciate that.
um,
Can I ask
definitely
you
need to
one
get a
question? I
problem.
know you got to move on, but I'm really curious now because you kind of opened
Do
the
it.
door to this, which is I think there's a lot of activity happening on AI on front ends, right? Like
Hmm.
that's where it's like
Yes.
competition is crazy. Everyone's competing with everyone. Figma, Vercel, Lovable are now all competitors suddenly,
Hmm.
and Shopify is getting involved and others. Like as someone who focuses a lot on front end, how do you feel? Like, how do you
So
feel about? Because I do see that bar rising on front ends. Like, I would be a bit more nervous there versus back ends, and I'm just curious if like you agree with that, or if you're like, nah, no one's
well,
taking
it's
market share from me.
yeah, no. It yeah. So initially when I saw a lot of this stuff, yes, I was like, oh shoot, like this is why I need to learn app dev really well because I'm going to be out of a job soon. But at least unless it makes some leaps and bounds here, in the short term, if anything, like it's almost like you're exposing, especially when we're talking about like citizen devs and stuff like this or what have you, for a lot of front end type stuff, it's great up to a certain point. Like it can get people like maybe 80% of the way, but that 20% gap is massive
Yeah,
from to 100%, right? And even something as simple as like an AI prompt of like if it doesn't one shot it, and you just wanted to add a couple new things, well, now you have like this totally new thing that comes out of it and it's not
yeah,
replicable.
yeah,
And so the same way where like some of these blocks and stuff like that, it doesn't update with the theme. So it's not a long-term solution for a lot of these folks if they don't know some of the basics to get it the rest of the way. So at least short term, I'm not
yeah,
as worried necessarily kind of type thing or what have you, especially again because kind of in the same way, like probably for like a lot of the not plus brands that devs are working with, right? So kind of the same way Gadget's focused on enterprise. I'm typically focused, the niche that I fit into is Shopify Plus brands who are, they're not quite big enough to have an in-house dev,
yeah,
right? But they're big enough that they have just ongoing work. And so a lot of those folks, it has to be very on brand. We have a lot of analytics, custom events kind of type stuff that has to work properly. And that is not something that AI is actually very good at quite yet. You can't come in here and make sure this stuff all works like
yeah,
all in one go. So,
yeah,
so that niche at least is still there's a nice hedge there. And a lot of those people too, they don't want to spend the time either. They've got marketing SEO people, but they're all very focused in their tasks.
yeah,
They still don't want to deal with dev.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, speaking of things we don't want to deal with, I think it is time to transition to the change log. So
You
I'm
don't
not
want
sure
to
you
deal
guys
with a
know.
change log? What?
No,
That's
I do.
hurtful.
Well, this is the part of the show where we listen to Taylor tell us all the things that we missed. And I do give him a hard time about it because it's just a gag, but we do appreciate it, Taylor. So hit us with the best stuff. Now, these are things you
Whatever.
wouldn't worry about if you were on Gadget because they would just handle it for you. But
They would
since
handle it for you. You don't even
we're
have to pay.
Luddites,
That should be your
yeah.
thing. Don't even worry about the change log. That's
Unless there's a breaking change, we can't fix Shopify's breaking changes for you.
right.
Well, not
So
yet.
Yeah, so there is a breaking change action required for
Oh,
legacy return APIs. Probably just mention that real quick. There's so many of these in here. I'm just gonna hop skip over. I told Carl ahead of time. There's like 12 like changelog stuff in the notes. I just want to hit the big stuff. So one where there is something important. Return refund mutation's been deprecated and replaced with return process mutation. So heads up on that for all of y'all with that mess. You just need to check the logs there. We'll have that in the notes as far as like what you need to do to upgrade there. So if you're dealing with returns, it's obviously pretty important. Some of the other things that are really great now, the storefront API cart object now will expose warnings for non-applicable discount codes. So super cool, like in general, that we could actually get, discount codes in the cart API. Very fantastic. But now storefront API, if you're, running some kind of headless implementation or something like that or whatever, if the discount code isn't applicable for that cart, like you'll get some actually helpful feedback there. Um, Real fast, you'll notice theme files are now installable at the preset level on the Shopify theme store. So this is something that they kind of hinted at a while ago, has actually rolled out. It's in the changelog. So that's kind of interesting. Before, you'd have this issue where you or a merchant are going to install a theme and it's got a bunch of presets and you like this preset. Whenever you download it, though, it installs as the base or the default preset, which then merchants were super confused on how to get the actual preset they wanted. So now, whenever they install it based on a specific preset, it's installable via that preset. So that was really nice. Burp, 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 burp. Okay, just checking to see here. I'm gonna try to hit like the important ones here as well. So the other thing that was interesting, generally available, the standard product review syndication program. It's available to all partners. So there's basically, you can build a reviews app that syndicates standard product review meta object. So Shopify has these standard meta objects. They actually don't count against your limit, which is really cool. And so the app now, as long as it meets their program requirements, you can actually get those. It'll be displayed in the shop app and everything else too. So really,
That's
really
the
interesting if you're looking at that. What's
I think
that?
that's I think that's the main reason is they're missing all those reviews from the shop app. So this way they're gonna jam them in there as well, like all the
Yep,
ones
there
that
you
are on
go.
all the big apps.
Right. We need the shop app. Give us more shop stuff. And then some of the big ones that I definitely want to make sure we talked about today. Let's say I was trying to hop skip over, so I'll try to wrap it up here so Carl doesn't fall asleep or anything. Shop meta field definitions are now available in the Shopify admin and admin API. So this was really nice. Probably one of the biggest reasons to get, since Shopify moved meta fields into the admin, one of the biggest reasons to get a meta fields app to manage all this stuff before really probably was just access to the shop meta field. And they talked for the longest time that they were not going to make this available in the admin. I don't know if they were just worried about people stuffing everything into the shop meta field definitions, but it's available now. So that's really, really handy and kind of exciting. I think there's a lot of good use cases there too for stuff like Shopify Flow and things of that nature as well. If you don't have something that is going to be maybe a object specific meta field definition, very, very handy to have. So pretty
Also
excited about that.
incredibly
Uh,
useful for public app devs because you can kind of
yes.
attach that metadata.
Yes. So you heard it. That's Muhammad's like calling it out. Like if you're an app dev, this is gonna be huge, man.
We know
Uh,
they add fields to that table all the time. They can't add meta fields, so we already
mhm.
see it.
Right, right.
Yeah, this is probably going to be the most in-demand meta field of all time.
It will. Yeah. It's gonna be really interesting now. And the nice thing is, so if you're using the Shopify CLI too, if you're a theme dev, it pulls in metafield definitions, which is really nice now to make it way easier for you to access via theme code or the IntelliSense and stuff like this. And so it pulls in the shop metafield. You can't create metafield definitions, obviously, but you can at least get the read and use it for IntelliSense. So it's very nice to have for that. Okay, so cart metafields are also accessible now in Shopify functions and checkout UI extensions. That's kind of huge as well. So I think before there was a lot of issues with this, and a lot of us were using like line item properties and stuff like that in order to get like easier access to cart stuff here. But now cart metafields are accessible here as well, which is really, really cool. We'll include that in all this stuff in the show notes, as well as some of the ones I did not read. Huge, huge, huge pagination limits for Liquid and Storefront GraphQL API have been increased. Everybody should be celebrating and happy about this. So we've gone from the 50 to the 250. So the way is being paved for all of these, big limits that we're all going to be seeing from merchants now for all this stuff. So be on the lookout for that. I think before, like, that was a thing. That was one of the downsides, or one of the things I think that Toby had hinted at when we had talked to him before. That was kind of like a REST, right? That was a REST thing, kind of type thing. And now that was one of the big benefits of moving over to GraphQL, was being able to increase some of those limits. So for those of you that are unhappy about the limits there with or with GraphQL in general, that's a huge win. And so finally, because this is Liquid Weekly podcast, there is a new Liquid filter for displaying unit prices. So you can use the new unit price with measurement filter to display unit prices in a customer's language. So that's really helpful if you need to worry about that. And so it says unit prices are only available for stores located in the EU or Switzerland. So, pay attention to that as well if you need that. And we'll, again, link that up in the show notes. And that is all I'm going to read. There's more stuff in there, so make sure to check the changelog. We'll include a couple more in the notes.
Thank you, Taylor. Appreciate that. I think what I really like about the changelog is not just that you bring us all of these changes, but that you actually have some commentary around it too that kind of contextualizes it and why we might like it. So thank you.
I've always got comments.
Sorry, I didn't
Speaking of which,
I'm supposed to not talk there, and give Taylor the...
it's good. We're now going to enter into the third half of our show, my favorite part, which is our picks of the week. So, Mohammed, we did prep you for this. So, do you know what I did at the very beginning? I said we're gonna do picks of the week.
Oh,
I'll give you
yeah.
a second.
I thought you meant show me the picks.
No. You take a second. I'll go first. I actually have two.
Yeah, you take a minute. Think about anything that you want. We're pretty
First
broad.
First one is a food offering. These are Dad's root beer barrels. Maybe you can see these very well.
Is that old candy? Yeah.
It's not old. I just bought it. But these are really good.
That's been around for a long time, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, have they? That's the first time I have them. They were passing them out for Father's Day the other day, and they're really good.
Yeah, they make actual root beer too. That's not bad.
Oh.
It's not the best, but it's not bad.
I didn't ask you to tell me if you like my pick of the week. This is my pick of the week.
The
other one,
the root beer bottles. I'll try it. Such a great pick,
Carl. Are you done talking? This is my pick still. I didn't talk at all during the changelog, so I'm saying. No, my second one is Fernco coupling. So we had a big rain event the other day, and I went outside and all my downspouts were coming up, which is not usually the way it works. Usually it goes down. And so I got some water in the basement, blah, 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 blah. So I'm looking into this, trying to figure out what's going on. I don't want to call someone because I'm that kind of guy. That's why I didn't use Gadget. Same reason, right? Because I wanted to do it myself. And the same problem happened. It ended up being a multi-day event. But fundamentally, the root cause was my wife had driven a garden stake, and it went right through the underground pipe that carries the water out to the street, and we just didn't realize it. So had to dig all that up and replace it. And if you ever worked with a pipe in the ground, you can't move the pipe to get fittings into it. So the only way is to use this thing called a Fernco, which is basically a big rubber adapter with some hose clamps on it. You can slide it on, and you can slide it over and clamp it down. So Fernco, thank you. Save on bacon. Nice. Yeah. Mohammed, you ready?
Sure. I am going to share a screen and show my pick of the week if I can. Nope, that's not how you do that. Where did
I know. This is
go?
Constrained by our podcasting environment.
Oh, no. Is it going to not let me do it?
I don't know if it lets you
should be able to.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's just the button for some reason. Acting weird. I am going to present to you all my very well thought out pick of the week, which is Omachi.
Oh.
Yeah.
So if you're curious what Omachi is, it is a delicious instant stewed beef noodle sold from Japan, and you can buy it online on Amazon as well, or on hungfatfood.com. So yeah, if you got lost there on Omachi, that's what Omachi is.
Thank you, Mohammed. Appreciate that.
That's awesome.
That was totally thought of beforehand and not on the call, and I put a lot of time into it.
I don't know if it's the same word, though, because he spells it Omarchi, Omarchy.
Oh, okay. Well, wrong thing then.
But no, noodles are good.
Yeah,
and
we're
good.
Sticking
good
with
just as well. Anyway, Taylor?
Yeah.
I think you're wearing it, aren't you?
Yes, I am. So my pick is going to be these Shocks headphones. I just got these. They use someone had recommended them to me. Brenda Store. She runs the Whisk theme on the Shopify theme store, and she recommended these. They're those bone conduction kind of type headphones. And so the nice thing is there's nothing actually like in or over your ear kind of type thing. I originally got them because these ones are actually the swim versions. So you can actually, they're waterproof and you can actually try swimming with them. I tried to go in this morning to test it out, and I actually forgot to download music to the headphones before I went. And so I just ended up doing a different kind of workout, but I love them. I've used them a lot for workouts, and I wanted to use them on the call today because I want to use them more for calls. I get very hot. I sweat a ton. It's really terrible.
True.
Like
It's gross.
on runs, like I have to like pull out my headphones and like give them a nice shake because they're so wet. Like water gets in your ear and stuff. So these are cool because nothing actually goes like in or over your ear, and so it's just really nice. And then you also have the awareness still of you can hear stuff. The bone conduction thing is really cool to me. I don't really understand the technology. I wanted to read up more on it, but I think it's really, really neat. I love them a lot so far. I use them for workouts, and then now I'm using them for calls too. So it's pretty great. It's pretty wild that you can actually hear super well. So
Yeah.
Shox headphones. They've got a bunch of different kinds. I got the swim ones. I can't speak to the swimming capabilities yet, but I hope to soon.
Very cool.
I just like how you say they don't go over your ear as you're pointing to the part that goes over your ear. Like,
Well,
what do you
I'm
mean?
talking like it
What do you
doesn't
mean,
cover
like
your
this?
ear.
Oh, okay. It's
It
not
doesn't
come
cover
off,
your
yeah.
like
Okay.
like
It's
I
clearly going
love
over your ear, Taylor.
I love these ones, but they like your ears get hot. Like if you're sitting in them for a long time, and so these are great, easy breezy airflow. Lovely.
Yeah.
Big
Note to
fan.
self: do not borrow Taylor's headphones.
No, don't.
Awesome. Well, I think that does it. Once again, you wasted another perfectly good hour you could have spent coding on Gadget with us here at Liquid Weekly. We appreciate you coming and listening. Hope you had a good time. Mohammed, thanks so much for joining us. Prakar,
Thank
hope your workout went really well. Hope you had those cool headphones like Taylor does and know how to get music on them. Maybe it could help him. And we'll see you guys in a couple weeks on the next one. Take care.
Thank you.